Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Suranjali Seal, and like I always say, if you are somebody that loves literature and is all about literature, then this is the channel for you. In our video today, we are going to begin with the general prologue to the Canterbury Tales. I'm going to analyze it and give a detailed explanation of all the characters that appear in the Canterbury Tales. This is an introduction. We've already covered the life and works of Geoffrey Chaucer, and today we're beginning with our general prologue to the Canterbury Tales, which is a must read, especially if you're in the if you're completing your graduations or you're pursuing your graduation, and then if you're in the university. This is the text which we are most likely to read as part of our syllabus. So this is the general prologue to the Canterbury Tales, a detailed explanation and analysis. So let's get right into it. So let us begin with the introduction. So on the right hand side, you have everything written in yellow. Everything, all the texts that are written in yellow are it's actually the literal translation in modern day English. So I will be reading that out, and then everything, all the fonts that are written in white is actually from the text itself. It's the original text. So I've included the text and the literal translation, so it's easier for us to understand what he has written. So I'm going to read out the normal one. Okay, I'm reading out the ones in yellow, the font in yellow. Then we're going to analyze everything that is required for us to know. So here, it was that time when sweet showers of April had wiped the dryness of March and penetrated to every root and bathed every vein with such liquor, which is the life-giving moisture that that makes a flower grow. It was the time when the west wind, with its sweet breath, had animated the tender sprouts in every grove and field to and the young sun. So let us just consider this. He's talking about spring. He's talking about the month of April. So it's this symbolism, or it actually tells us about this idea of rejuvenation. This is the idea of sprouting, of beginnings. So it's the beginning of the pilgrimage, it's the beginning of a journey, it's the beginning for us readers to walk with Chaucer through the Canterbury Tales. It's this whole essence of a beginning, a new beginning is what is highlighted in this first part. Also, he's talking about how the sweet showers of April, the first rains of the year, they wipe out the dryness of March, and they penetrate into the roots, and the moisture actually gives the flowers that capability to actually bloom, right? So it's a new beginning. And when this is the time when the west wind with its sweet breath had animated the tender sprouts in every grove and field, and the young sun had run its half course. When you read the text, original text, he says the tender crops and the young sun hath in the ram his half course ye run. So what does he mean with hath in the ram, the half course had run? The sun had run its half course. What does it mean? The word ram, okay, it means Aries is the Latin word for ram, and it is the first astrological sign, or the zodiac sign, which originates from the constellation named Aries. So Hamal is the brightest star of the constellation. People born in the duration of 20th March to 19th April fall under this zodiac. So what he's trying to say is that the first few months, the first months or the first course of the sun had already begun running of the year, So the young sun had run its half course. Okay, so it is the first astrological zodiac sign when he talks about ram. So just know that the sun had run its first, it's the beginning of the year. It has run its half course. 3 months has passed by from March, So it is that time that he's talking about. It's April that he's talking about. And small birds who did not sleep all night keep singing because nature fills their heart with amorousness. So these are birds who engage in lovemaking at night. Maybe they have amorousness and they do not sleep the whole night, and in the morning they're still singing. So there's this brightness to April that he's talking about, this lightness to April that he's alluding to. So it's all about nature and rejuvenation. So because at such a time people desire to go on pilgrimages. You can consider the weather, which is pleasant. It is not rainy, it is not winter, it is not harsh. It's the month of spring. It's supposed to be conducive for a pilgrimage. So it is this time that people want to go to pilgrimages, and pilgrims travel to strange lands to visit distant shrines in distant countries, and especially from every English shire's end, people travel to Canterbury's. People from different countries travel to different shrines. People from the English shire's end Okay, they traveled to Canterbury. So, to visit the shrine of the Holy Blessed Martyr who helped them when recover when they had fallen ill. It so happened that in April one day, as I lay at the Tabard Inn in Southwark, so this is the location, Tabard Inn at Southwark. Okay, he was lying there one day in April, he was just lying there and ready to set out on his pilgrimage to Canterbury with full devout courage. At night were come into that inn 9 and 20, 29 in company of different folk. So he was lying in the Tabard Inn in Southwark, and at night, tomorrow he's going to embark on the journey, right, on the pilgrimage to Canterbury, and today at night a group of 29 pilgrims walk into that inn. So these are all different folk from different classes of society, and they were all pilgrims, and towards Canterbury they would ride. The chambers and stables of the inn were wide and well treated, were all the guests in the best possible manner, and shortly when the sun was to set, I had spoken to each of them. He had spoken to each pilgrim. You have to understand why the setting is important. Okay, I will explain this. Let me just finish reading this. To earn their fellowship. So he had spoken to, by the time the sun had set, he had already spoken to all the pilgrims, got to know them, and he earned their trust, their friendship, fellowship, and decided to rise early to set out for Canterbury the next day, as he shall tell you. But nevertheless, while I have time and space, Chaucer is telling us, before I go ahead with this tale, I think it is reasonable to tell you about the nature of each of them as it seemed to me, and who they were and of what rank, and in what clothes were they dressed, and with the night then will I first begin. So what he's saying here, I talked to all of them, I got to know them, I observed them, I talked to them, I got to know about their natures, Now I'm going to tell you about who they are. I'm going to tell you what they were wearing, how they were, which rank did they belong to. So he's going to tell us about each of these pilgrims, and that's the prologue to the Canterbury Tales. One after the other, he tells us about the characters, and it is with the night that he's going to begin. Now, in this introduction, of course, April is important, nature is important, rejuvenation and the sense of beginning is important, but even more important is the idea of the pilgrimage, is the setting, Now, I'll explain this. In the society, even today, there are so many differences between so many people, right? In those times, it was a class-based society. So there were differences between people who belonged to different stratas of society. There was huge difference and strict division between people who belong to different classes. The higher class and lower class would not mix. So, you have a knight in shining armor, person from the nobility might mix with the person from the church, might mix with the clergy, but will not mix with, the clerk at Oxford, will not mix with the guildsman, will not mix with, say, a miller. You will not have these people mixing in real life. In real life, they have their own classes to maintain. They have their own circle, The pilgrimage is very, very important here. The pilgrimage attains importance here because it is the only setting where all of these different people will come together. Even today in our lives, you will see that when you go to, say, any temple, when you go to any church, if you go to a mosque, anywhere, even actors, actors and important people of the world, okay, you can consider politicians also. If they go there if they go to a shrine, visit a shrine, you have to behave like the commoners. You have to do what everybody else is doing. There's no, no VIP treatment. So if there's a commoner and say an actor or an actress going towards a shrine, you do it similarly. You will not have too much of a VIP treatment. So the pilgrimage is the perfect setting where people who belong to different stratas of the society, different classes of the society, who otherwise will never mix, they are the ones who are thrown into this one pot, you can say, one bowl, where they're thrown into this mix. And that's where the idea of the pilgrimage and the Tabard Inn, that's where the importance is highlighted. Because a pilgrimage is the perfect setting where you can have these different people coming together. People of different ranks, people of different social orders, people of different sensibilities, people of different priorities, people who are not the same. You have different people thrown into the mix, and that's what makes the Canterbury Tales so alluring. That's what makes it so interesting, because otherwise, if you even consider a knight, if you consider a friar, you consider the nun, the priestess, all of these, the priests, if you consider all of them, the monk, you know, a monk will socialize with his own cloister. If you consider a friar with his own brethren, if you consider the nun with her own nun, you know, she's part of an abbey. All of these things together, no, they're secluded, you know, to their own groups. They don't mix in real life. In Chaucer's time, there was this clear classification, rigidly even, where they don't mix. Now we have all of these different people with different lifestyles even thrown into the mix, and that's where the interest begins. That's where the magic is woven, or this is where it all begins, you know. That's why he has done this so carefully, and so he is so aware, with full awareness he has done this. That's why he is called the father of English literature. That is why he's known as the father of English poetry. So this is the introduction to the Canterbury Tales, the prologue, the general prologue to the Canterbury Tales. Now we're going to dive deep into the characters who appear in the Canterbury Tales, and the first person that we're going to deal with is the knight. I'm going to read out just like I have. I'll read out the actual translation, then I have an analysis slide also. We're going to analyze each of the characters, their significance, and how he employs satire, how he depicts them. We're going to analyze all of that moving forward. So let's get right into it. So the first character who we are introduced to in the Canterbury Tales is the knight. Okay, and I'm going to see, this is the text, the whatever I've given in the left hand side in white, the font color is white. All of that is the original text. The one in yellow is the one which is a translation. It's the, in today's English, the literal explanation or the literal translation of whatever is the original text. So I'll read out the original text you can read on your own. I'm going to read out the translation, then explain the whole thing to you. So this is what Chaucer tells us about the knight. Okay, so he says, a knight was there, and he was a worthy or brave man. From the first time that he first began to ride out or to take part in military campaigns or quests, he loved truth, honor, freedom, and courtesy. So this is the knight. We are introduced to him, and immediately he says that from the first time that the knight had been employed as a knight, okay, I'm saying it simply. So when he first began to ride out, see, knights were not supposed to be stationed in one place. They were supposed to go out, you know, fight wars. They were supposed to, you can say, go on quests. Okay, many of the Arthurian legends and romances, they have these strands. Okay, romances have these strands that knights are supposed to go out and they're supposed to go on a quest, on a journey. They are not stationed in one place, so they travel all around. So from the first time that this knight started roaming or started to ride out, to go on these quests, to go and fight, or maybe to go out of his country, when he started to take part in military campaigns or quests, right, he loved truth, honor, freedom, and courtesy. So when you give a character sketch of the knight, you have to understand that these are the values that he embodies in himself. He values truth, honor. If he values truth, honor, freedom, and courtesy, so it's more likely that he embodies these values, these virtues in himself. So this is the knight in shining armor that Chaucer introduces to us. Now you see, no man had ridden so far as him, both in Christian and non-Christian countries. So it's not like he has traveled only in particular countries. He's traveled all over, and nobody of his stature or of his rank had ever traveled as far as him. So he was very dedicated to his work, okay, and he was very courageous and brave, because you can understand those times, you know, connectivity was an issue. You did not have that proper connectivity in terms of locomotion or traveling from one country to the other, one place to the other. We did not have that much of a developed connectivity between nations, right? So this person, he has ridden far and wide. He has traveled far and wide. That means he's brave. He's taking on these challenges. He's taking on these quests, and he's roaming far and wide, both in Christian and non-Christian countries, and was always honored for his worthiness and bravery. Likely, if he's serving, if he's justifying his work, naturally he's going to be honored. So he was honored for his worthiness or his bravery, because he has traveled so far and wide. So he was in Alexandria when it was won. So Alexandria is a place. Here he says, at Alexandria he was when it was won. So when Alexandria was sieged, right, when it was taken over, when Alexandria was attacked and it was taken over, he was at that place at that time. Now you have to understand that this is a historical event, okay. Alexandria was actually won in 1365 by whom? Who is the person, this historical figure who had attacked Alexandria? It was King Peter of Cyprus. In 1365 the siege had taken place. So Cyprus, officially the Republic of Cyprus, is an island country in the Eastern Mediterranean Sea. So somewhere in the Eastern Mediterranean Sea, this is an island country. At that time there was a king whose name was King Peter of Cyprus. He is the one who actually attacked Alexandria. So he attacked and he looted, okay, Alexandria. So the brief Alexandrian crusade, also called the sack of Alexandria. I think you have heard of the word ransacked. Ransacked means you attack a place and you don't settle there, you actually loot the place as much as you can. You just sack Alexandria. So here it is a crusade. If you know what a crusade is, I'm going to explain it to you. It is to take part or to lead or to take part in a vigorous campaign for social, political or religious change. Now, very traditionally and often stereotypically, when we refer to the Crusades, we actually refer to this religious conquest, okay? The Crusades, the 100 Years' War, which were fought in the name of religion. Whenever we talk about Crusades, we actually refer to that. We refer to the religious aspect of the war, that you're fighting in the name of religion, okay? So years and years of wars have taken place, but it is not necessary that crusades can be fought only for religious purposes or for to aid religious ends, okay? Crusades can be social and political also. So here the Alexandrian Crusade, okay, also called the Sack of Alexandria, occurred in October 1365 and was led by Peter I of Cyprus against Alexandria in Egypt. So in 1365, after having collected money and mercenaries in Western Europe, he seized and sacked Alexandria. Now, all of these things are not important as far as the night is concerned, our Canterbury Tales is concerned. What you have to just understand here, that this is a real historical event that had taken place, and Chaucer is saying that during this siege which had taken place, our knight was present there. This knight was there when Alexandria was sacked, okay. Oftentimes he had taken the head of the table in Prussia. So Prussia, I'll tell you this, okay. He has taken the head of the table in Prussia. I'll give you an example. Imagine all of our different countries, they're part of different organizations, part of different institutions. So let's just take, for example, we're talking about the World Health Organization, okay. Let's just take an example. Now, suppose the World Health Organization is sitting on a table and they're inviting a country that please come to and attend this meeting. Or imagine if some kind of program, or say World Environment Day worldwide, is being organized and they're inviting a country and say that please come and attend this. Okay, if they're inviting prime ministers or presidents and saying please be part of this cultural event that is taking place in our country, what does that tell us about the person, or what does that tell us about the country? That they're very honored, that their presence matters in those meetings. So if there is, say, a very important decision that's being taking place, or important meeting that's going to happen between countries, you're inviting important countries to take part in that meeting. Now, when you invite the country, or you're inviting representatives of the country to go and attend that meeting, it shows how much the country matters, right? It kind of shows as if that it kind of shows the importance that in the decision making process, the country's participation is important. So you'll see many countries you call are part of these organizations. Anytime, if you take the example of G20 also, the different countries that are part of the G20, and then, India hosted it last year, and then the next year, after that, some other country will do it. Before that, some other country did it. And all the countries that are coming part and taking part in this whole institution, or this whole organization, what is happening is, these countries are important. The moment they're called to please come, we attend this meeting for us, it actually shows to you how important the country is, and how important in the knight's case, if he's the head of the table in Prussia, it shows that he's an important figure, right? He's an important representative of the state. He's an important figure. So, you see, he's all about truth, honor, freedom, courtesy. He's fighting in far off lands in the name of his country, in the name of his religion. He's fighting wherever he is sent on a quest to. And now even in places like Prussia and say in Prussia and in these different kind of nations, he's being called, and he said that you be the head of the table. When you're the head of the table, that means you're presiding over everyone. So likely there are other people from other parts of the world who have come there, and he's the head of the table and presiding over that meeting. So what does that tell us about the knight? That he is an important figure, that he is a worthy man, that he is a brave man. So he was an important person. So oftentimes he had taken the head of the table in Prussia as the most honored person among all nations. So, they're giving him that honor, that he was worthy enough for that stature, So then he's saying he had fought in Lithuania and in Russia. No other Christian man of his rank was like him. Okay, so in Lithuania had he raised, and in Rus or in Russia, no Christian man so often of his degree. In Granada at the siege he had been, and so what he's saying, in Granada also during the siege of Granada he had been there. So why is Chaucer telling us about all of these different places that this knight has been? That, in the name of his country, in the name of his religion, he has sacrificed, everything. He has gone out on these quests and fought for his country, won at times, and the fact that he's traveling from one place to another, it shows us that he has courage, that he has bravery, that now we have so much of, we have cars and trains and planes through which we can travel back and forth, and it's easier. But think of those times, it was not, connectivity was not that smooth. So amidst all of, even mobile phones were not there, so chances are if you're going on a quest, your family members will not be able to contact you for years, maybe, or for months. Okay, years would be exaggerated, but for months. So he's doing all that. Why? Because of his patriotism, right? So this is the point of Chaucer, that this is who the knight was. He was very dedicated to his job. He was passionate about his job as a knight in shining armor. So he had been in Granada where the siege of Algeciras took place. He had ridden to Ben Marin. He had been to Armenia and Asia Minor. So when they were captured, so he was in all of these places when they were captured. That means he was fighting, right, for his country. So he's saying he went on expeditions to the Great Sea. So, amidst all the uncertainty, he has been a part of all of that. Why? Because of his patriotism. So, as part of the noble expeditions and noble armies. So I hope till here you have understood the character of the knight. He's dedicated, he's passionate, he values truth, honor, freedom, courtesy. He is the person who has been the head of tables in different parts of, he has been the part of the head of the table. He presided over meetings in Prussia, and he has taken part in different campaigns and different expeditions. And what does this tell us about him? That he was a brave, worthy knight. So the first line in this description, a knight was there and he was worthy, brave man. So I think this justifies, the first line justifies whatever he's describing us. Okay, now we're going to move on further because we're not done with his character sketch. Then we'll analyze it also. Okay, so he fought in 15 battles. He fought for the Christian faith in Algeria, and he had also taken part in lists 3 and had slain his foe. So what does this mean? At mortal battles had he been 15 and fought for our faith at Tramazine. In lists 3 he had slain his foe. What does this mean? List is tournament of single combat. You have an opponent and you fight with him. It's a 1-to-1 match. Okay, so it's single combat, and he fought in lists, and in these 3 lists where he won 3 times. Each time he had killed his adversary. He had defeated the enemy, and not only just defeated but killed his adversary. So he had a lot of strength. Okay, now this worthy knight had also been at some point with the Lord Ruler of Palatia to fight against another heathen in Turkey. Now we are talking about alliances. So politically, if you see, he's a knight in shining armor. He is actually serving the state because he's fighting in the name of the state, right? So he has been called, he has been with the ruler of Palatia, who had invited him that be my ally, form alliances, be my ally and fight against another enemy. So there was a heathen in Turkey. So at some point he was with this person who invited him. See, this tells us that he delivers his promise, right? He is so strong. And he's so capable, he's so able and dedicated that there are alliances. He's being invited by different rulers, not the ruler of his country, but another country, another ruler is inviting him and asking him to form alliances. To do what? To fight against another enemy. So, it shows us how important this knight is. So, and forevermore he enjoyed a noble reputation. If he is delivering, if he is justifying his job, then naturally he's going to have a noble reputation, right? So he always enjoyed a noble reputation. He was worthy, brave, as well as wise. So see, I'll give you this classic example to understand this line. Suppose a person has only strength, no knowledge and no wisdom. Okay, only strength. So is that a good characteristic if you're very, very strong and only strong? No, right? Because you cannot just go out there, I'm going to kill this person, I'm going to hit this person, I'm going to go and fight today. But you don't have the knowledge, you have nothing in the brain, and you don't even have the wisdom. I'll tell you the difference between knowledge and wisdom. Knowledge is all the facts, all the learning things, all the facts and things that you retain in your brain. Wisdom is knowing how to use it. Wisdom is how you lead your life. Wisdom is how your power of deciphering, your power of application. You have the knowledge, you've stored knowledge in your head, but you need wisdom to use it. You need to have wisdom with yourself. So our our knight is worthy, brave, as well as wise. So he is worthy, okay, he has the knowledge, he is brave, he has strength, and he is wise, he has the wisdom to use it. You need a balance between the three. If you're only all knowledge and you do not have strength, that is also not good. If you're having only strength and no knowledge, that is also not good. If you have strength and knowledge, but you don't have the wisdom, or you don't have the idea of how to use it, in which situation, how you're supposed to act, whether you're going to escalate a problem or de-escalate a problem, how do you use that knowledge system which you have? That is wisdom. So, you have to have a balance between the three, and our knight had all of them. You're supposed to have knowledge. Knowledge without strength and wisdom is useless. If you have strength and you don't have knowledge and wisdom, it's useless. And what you have to have is strength, knowledge, and wisdom to be a complete personality, to complete your character. This will indeed make you virtuous, because you'll know how to act in situations, you will know about the world, and at the same time you can decipher what to do and what not to do. That's your wisdom, right? That helps you actually deal with life. It also helps you how to view the world. So our knight was all of this. He had strength, he had knowledge, and he had wisdom. The perfect, genteel, brave knight. So now he never uttered a foul word. His behavior was modest as a maiden. It means that he has never spoken wrongly, or he never did anything wrong, or even spoke anything in a wrong manner to anyone, no matter what. And that kind of elevates his character. That kind of gives us a sneak peek into his dignity, that he was a dignified person. He had a gravity about him. His personality was such that, his aura was such that it screamed dignity. He was a dignified person, he was noble, he belonged to the nobility, and he was justifying that stature. So this is who our knight is. So he has never uttered a foul word, not foul-mouthed in all his life to any kind of person, no matter what. He was a very perfect, gentle knight. So he was a perfect, gentle knight. So, but to tell you of his clothes or his equipment, basically his appearance, his horse was good, but he did not wear showy garments. Remember, he is a person who is humble, who is down to earth. So he does not show off. So his garments also was like that. He did not wear showy garments at all. A person of his rank, you would expect that person to be a show off, right? But he's not. And that kind of, again, adds to his dignity, adds to his character, adds to his personality. So you will look up to him by default. So, his clothes and equipments and his appearance, how were they? His horse was good, but he did not wear showy garments. He wore a doublet which was made of fustian. In the original text, it's written of fustian, he wore a gippon. A gippon is a doublet. Now, I am going to show you a picture, that picture over there. You see the brown sweater kind of a thing, you can say, or the shirt, or I'll just call it a sweater. The garment which he's wearing below the armor, right? The silver armor, there's inside he's wearing a brown cloth. that is a fustain, and fustain is a material, is a coarse material. So the doublet is that thing is called a doublet, what he's wearing inside, and it is made up of fustain. It's a coarse material, and on top of that he has to wear his armor, because you cannot wear armor on a bare body, it'll hurt, right? Because it's it has sharp edges, like you can see only on the in the picture, and also it is made up of heavy material. So you have to protect your body at the end of the day. So they're wearing a fustain coat inside. So that's a fustain doublet, and on top of that you wear the armor. So he wore a doublet which was made of fustain, which was soiled by the armor of his body. So you're wearing the fustain, and then you're wearing the armor, and you're going to fight. When you're fighting, your armor is protecting your body, so you're fighting and fighting and fighting. In the process, you're fighting in an open field, so to say, and open area. So it's soiled, his garment is soiled, okay, soiled in the sense that there's mud on his clothes. Why is there mud? Because he's fighting, and all the mud in his during his fight, obviously he's not going to take care of his appearance, right? He's fighting with his life, literally. So you have mud and soil that gets onto the garments, and now that he's coming to the pilgrimage, there's traces of soil. His fustain was soiled by the armor of his body. So his armor probably got mud and soil on it when he was fighting, and of course that kind of it kind of passed on to the fustain also, because you're wearing that and you're fighting. And for he had recently returned from his voyage. So technically what Chaucer is telling us is probably he had been on a voyage, he had fought there, or he had gone on an expedition. On his way back, he just put down his armor, he just put down all his weapons and everything, and he had directly embarked on the pilgrimage. So his fustain was soiled by the armor for the body. He had been on an expedition, fought there, and then directly he recently came back and directly embarked on the pilgrimage. So he did not have time to change. So what does this tell us about the knight? That he did not really care about his appearance at all. Okay, he has his focus where it needs to be. He fights when he needs to fight. When he's going on a pilgrimage, his focus is on the pilgrimage. It is not on what he's wearing, how he's looking, nothing of the sort. He was an ideal to look up to. So he had recently returned from his voyage and embarked on this pilgrimage. So this is all about the knight in shining armor. Now we're going to look at the analysis of Chaucer's knight in the Canterbury Tales. Now we're going to look at the analysis of Chaucer's knight, okay, and the importance of why this introduction, the importance of being introduced first. So he is the first of the pilgrims to be introduced, and he stands at the top of the social hierarchy in this group of people. So like I said, why the setting is important, it's because it is under this pilgrimage setting only during Chaucer's time that all of these people belonging to the different stratas of society can come together. You will never have in real life, in those times also, you will never have a knight mingling with a miller. You will never have a knight mingling with a clerk of Oxford. You will not have a nun talking with these people. Some of them are even drunkards. So you will not have the nun socializing with them. These are clearly demarcated strands of society, stratas of society. During those times, it was even more rigid. So you would not have different people from different classes of society mingling together. The pilgrimage is the perfect place where all of these different people will come together and talk, right, and mingle and kind of be in the same place at the same time. So that is why it's important. And why the knight is being introduced to us first, because he belongs to the nobility, he belongs to the higher classes of society. In these group of people, he is the highest, okay, in terms of class. So when we talk about the knight over here, his character will set the stage according to which we will judge the other characters. So he has truth, he has honor, he has courtesy, he is brave, he is wise, he has knowledge, he is modest, okay, no matter what his stature in life is, he was always humble. So these are the things that we have to look up to, these are the things that we have to strive towards. So this is the basis. He's setting the stage against, or the character, he's setting the character goals against which we are going to judge the other characters who are going to appear after this. So this is the ideal we have to strive for. He is the character against whom the rest of the characters can be judged. He is providing the ethical standards of the time. So during Chaucer's time, these are the values, these are the principles, these are the characteristics in a person that was most valued. You have to understand this. That is why he introduced the knight first. So Chaucer shows him to be possessing the characteristics or code of behavior which actually prevailed among knights of those days. A knight was to embody virtues like honor, truth, bravery, purity, and justness. Their duty was to serve and defend Christianity during those times. So that's why you see the word crusades, religious war and all that. So they were supposed to serve not only the church but also protect the poor and the needy and also the damsels in distress. And Chaucer gave us an ideal to aspire towards, to look up to via the character of the knight. So I hope this is very, very clear. The knight represents the best of the nobility. He is honorable, polite, just, very competent at applying martial effort to protect his people, country, and his faith. Okay, so this is the character of the knight. His importance lies in the fact that he sets the ground upon which we are to he sets the stage against which we are going to judge the other characters. So, this is the ideal that we're supposed to strive towards. Now we're going to move on to the next character that appears in the prologue to the Canterbury Tales. Now we're going to have a look at the son of the knight. We've met the knight. Now we're going to have a look at his son and what was he like. So with him, that is with the knight, was his son, a young squire. Now you have to know who a squire is. A young nobleman acting as an attendant to a knight before becoming a knight himself. Nothing important, nothing to brainstorm there. Who is a squire? I'll tell you, it's like an apprentice, okay? Nowadays, I think you would have heard that there was a time, okay, I'll tell you, that even in India, a son of a farmer would be a farmer, a son of a potter would be a potter. So it was very rigid system of caste system, right, we had. And these people who belong to a particular occupation, generation after generation would be in that occupation, would take part in that occupation only. So how would the son, say, of a potter who makes pottery, right, the person, how would the son of a potter, how would he learn pottery? By looking at his father. From a young age, he would be with his father, look at him, how he works, how he makes the pots, and then he would learn from that. A time came when all of that stopped, okay, and then you had mobility. People could move up and down the caste system also. So a son of a potter would want to, say, just giving an example, would want to become a goldsmith, saying, so that person would now go in with the goldsmith. How will you learn the work of a goldsmith? You go to the goldsmith, you stay with the goldsmith, and you see how the goldsmith is working, and then you learn the work. This person, who belongs, say, to a potter's family, the person who's going to the goldsmith and learning his trade is known as an apprentice. Okay. So what is an apprentice? Who is an apprentice? He is the one who's learning somebody's trade by staying there, looking at the person, and you are learning the trade there. You're learning any trade it can be. Now, today, of course, we have studies, right? We go to school, we study, college, study, after that university, study, and then we go for a different profession. The things have changed. This is Chaucer's time we're talking about. So the son, is attending to his father because he himself is a knight in the making. He is the knight in the making. He is acting as an attendant to a knight before becoming a knight himself. So he is like an apprentice. Okay, this is the easiest way that I could explain it. So he is a young squire. Okay, he's training to be a knight who was a lover and a strong aspirant for attaining knighthood. So a little bit of a contrast over here. How? He was a lover. So, like his priorities, when we talked about the knight, he was a brave, worthy man. And the first description that he gives us about his son is that he was a lover and that he was an aspirant for attaining knighthood. So we still have some noble aspects to his character. He is still an aspirant of knighthood, so he must be passionate about the job, right? So that's why he wants to attain knighthood. But we're going to see the reasons why he wants to become a knight. His hair had perfect curls, as if they were curled with a curling iron. He was probably 20 years of age, I guess. In stature, he was of average height. He was wonderfully agile and possessed great strength. He had once been in cavalry in Flanders, in Artois and in Picardy. He had given a good account of him there because he had a good record of fighting the wars in hopes to win his love interest's favour. Now see, contrast again. His hair had perfect curls. His father was unkempt. He had soiled his fustian coat. He had come from an expedition, and he just came to the pilgrimage like that. Did not care about how he looked like. The son had perfect curls, and almost as perfect as you do it with a curling iron, and he was probably 20 years of age, so that kind of also highlights to us his immaturity. His father had years of experience, but he is just 20 years, so his priorities are all messed up. And in stature he was of average height. He was agile, he was very swift and very athletic and very active, but he also possessed great strength. The knight possessed great strength and wisdom and knowledge, but this person has only strength. You see the contrast. That's why I highlighted the point to you. So this one has only great strength, but his father has strength, knowledge and wisdom. So he had once been in the cavalry in Flanders. Flanders is a place. He served there, and he gave a good account of himself. Fought well, okay. And he also had a good record of fighting in the wars. There were good records of him fighting in the wars, in hopes to win his love interest's favour, in hope to stolen or to get in his lady's grace. That is, he wanted the favour of his love interest. He wanted to win her over. So his father's priority is literally the country and his faith. His father is dedicated that way. But this young squire is immature and his priorities are not in line, and the only reason that he's training to be a knighthood and why he's performing well, it's because he wants to win his love interest's favour. So you see the immaturity, you see the contrast with the knight. There's a stark contrast between the father and the son. So his garment was embroidered like a meadow full of fresh flowers. So you understand he's wearing expensive clothes. His father was wearing a soiled fustian coat, and what he's wearing, he's wearing embroidered clothes, which at that time naturally was very, very expensive. Now we have, machines have taken over, and of course embroidery is very pretty when you do it with the hand. It takes a lot of effort, and that's why the price is such. If you embroidery with the hand, it takes years and years, and it takes hours and hours, and even months and months of work to be put into one work if you're doing it with your hand and carefully. So he's wearing such clothes which naturally during those times were very, very expensive, and it was full of fresh flowers, white and red in color, singing or playing the flute all day. He was fresh like the month of May. Now see, when we talked about the knight, we only talked about his expeditions, we only talked about his humilities. You see the contrast here. We are talking about how he played the flute all day, how he would sing all day. So he had priorities again, like I'm saying. His singing and his flute playing and all that must have been his hobbies. He liked doing that, but he opted for knighthood. For what reasons? You understand what I'm saying? So over here he's saying that he was fresh like the month of May. So his father was soiled and dirty, did not care about his appearance. This person was fresh as the month of May, clean and very not unkempt. He was groomed well. And so, short was his gown and his sleeves were long and wide. He could sit and ride the horse well. He could compose songs well, and he could dance, draw and write well. So you see, these are his hobbies. Probably this is what he likes to do. So he loved so hotly at night time that he slept no more than does a nightingale. He was courteous, humble and useful. So he was courteous, he was humble, okay, and he was useful. If you give him any work, he'll do it, that kind of a thing. But for the knight, he was important. He delivered for sure. The kind of a contrast. The knight is this epitome of ideals. He is the epitome of chivalry. He is the one who is depicting experience. He has, in his character, experience will reflect. But for the young squire, he's still a knight in the making, and he's young, just 20 years of age, so he's quite immature as well. So he carved or cut meat into pieces before his father at the table. So this is our young squire, a stark contrast to his father, and now we're going to do his character analysis. So he is the knight's own son, youth and youthful. So he is a youth, 20 years of age, and he has all the characteristics of being a youth. So he's youth and youth. He is a youth and he is youthful as well. So he, as against the image of his father, he provides quite a contrast. So the knight, maturity and dignity. Squire, youthful enthusiasm. Like I said, all strength, okay, and curls and bodily appearance and all of those things. He's singing, writing, drawing and everything, okay. So soiled clothes for the knight, his dedication plus no heed to appearances. For the squire, he has embroidered clothes, cared about appearances, dresses lavishly. Knight, he is accomplished in his trade. Squire took an interest in the arts in general. So he's into singing, flute playing, drawing and writing, you know. So those are his interests. So unlike the knight, a dignified and sincere veteran of the crusades, the squire is far more focused on courtly love and romance than war, likely because of his age and relative inexperience. So this is what I've explained right now. This is a very short analysis because it's not that long also, right? The description of the squire. So now we're going to move on further. Now we're going to have a look at the yeoman. The knight had a yeoman to attend to him. So the knight and his son are traveling, and with them there's the yeoman. So a yeoman is a servant or an attendant in a royal or noble household. Easy to understand, he's attending to the knight, and the knight travelled with the yeoman, and he had no other servants at that time, for the knight preferred to travel without them. So look at the character of the knight. He has servants to serve him, but he is travelling only with one attendant, that is the yeoman, because he does not want to show off that I have so many servants at home, I come from the nobility. He did not carry 5-6 servants with him to the pilgrimage. He had only the yeoman to attend to him. So the yeoman wore a coat and green coloured hood, very easy to understand. He carried a sheaf. What is a sheaf? It is a bundle of arrows, okay. So his bundle of arrows were of peacock feathers. So a bundle of peacock feather arrows, bright and sharp, under his belt, and handed them efficiently. So well could he dress and talk like a true yeoman. So under his belt, he handled them efficiently. That means he knows the trade. He knows how to handle the arrows. So well could he dress and talk like a true yeoman. So he dressed as well as he carried himself and spoke like a true yeoman. So his arrows drooped not with feathers low. So his arrows did not droop with feathers low. So it's not like he carried or dangled them with him. He's carrying it properly, sturdily, and he's not like letting the arrows droop on the ground. You know, he's carrying it, and in his hands he bore a mighty bow. So of course he has arrows, so he has a bow as well. He had very short hair, and his head had a brown face. So he's describing the skin color as well. He was good at woodscraft and knew its usage. So that's what he was good at. Upon his arm, he carried an extravagant arm guard. So this is an arm guard. I'll just show you. You know, nowadays when you ride bikes also you have gloves, right? You know, it's some kind of a glove for protection. So that's an arm guard, and arm guard. And by his side, he carried a sword and a buckler. So that is a sword and a buckler. You see, I gave the picture over there. That's a sword and a buckler. And on the other side, a bright dagger. So that's a dagger. I again gave a picture over here. And mounted well and harnessed well and sharp as point as a spear. So he had all of these equipments with him, and he maintained them well. So this is what he carried with him. A silver medal of Saint Christopher shone upon his breast. He carried a horn, the carrying strap of which was green. So that is a horn. In this picture, you see the strap, the carrying strap of the horn here is black, okay, but the one which the yeoman was carrying was green. So he was probably a forester, I guess, a person in charge of forest or skilled in planting, managing or caring for trees. So this yeoman was an attendant. He's attending to the knight, but he was probably a forester, not just like an attendant who'll follow the knight around. He was probably a forester. That's what Chaucer is saying. We are going to look at the analysis. This is a very direct, crystal clear description of the yeoman. There's nothing much to explain, but I will do an analysis in the next slide. So let's get right into that. So see, Chaucer is not just giving us a story, a mere story, that this is the Canterbury Tales, and he's not just giving us a story, or he's not just giving us random characters, he's representing the society of that age. So why is the yeoman important? It's because in the 15th century the term yeoman also came to mean a small landowner, but here in the Canterbury Tales it probably means the knight's attendant or a forester. Yeoman, who is also a forester, is more concerned with the game rather than the preservation of the forest. This is symbolized by his hood of green, because Lincoln green or bright green was the hunter's color. He had arrows. So a yeoman was supposed to be a landowner, or maybe I can say it that he's supposed to be a forester. He's taking care of a particular, say, forest. He's taking care of the trees, he's taking care of the land. Okay, that's what a forester is supposed to be. But this yeoman has bows and arrows. He has an arm guard. So what does that tell us? Probably he was into the hunting game. He used to go for hunts, and Lincoln green, like he said, or bright green, was the hunter's color, and he has arrows and everything. So here there's nothing much to analyze out of the box. It is a direct description of the kind of people who were present in the society during that time. So yeoman is one of them, one of the people in that society, and he's describing such a person to us. So the yeoman in this tale is described as having an ashen face and having a rundown physique from the labor of his work. So you'll understand this when you listen to the yeoman's story. So this is the analysis of Chaucer's yeoman. Now we're going to move on to the prioress. So now we have come to one of the most interesting characters in the Canterbury Tales, and the way that Chaucer describes her is with a touch of irony and satire. So this is the prioress. Okay, there was also a nun or a prioress, and who is a prioress? She is the head of a group of nuns. Okay, so why he uses satire and irony in describing her, you'll understand this very well as we move forward. It's because he wanted to expose the corruption that existed in the church leadership. Within the church, there was a lot of corruption that was happening at the time, and he uses satire and irony to expose all of that through various characters, and one of them is the nun, the prioress. So the prioress is the head of a group of nuns. Her smile was simple and coy or shy. So when we imagine a nun, or we imagine the countenance or the the facial features and the facial expressions of a nun, we don't expect a nun to be shy, right? It's like, you're shy and you're smiling, and you don't expect those kind of demeanors coming from a nun, because she's supposed to be so spiritually invested, so religiously invested in her mind, in her thoughts, in the way she carries herself, that shyness and coyness and constant smiling and all of those things doesn't really come to our mind, if you understand what I mean. So whose greatest oath was by Saint Loy? This is again a contrast, because Saint Loy was the saint of goldsmiths. Okay, so because she is a nun, it is odd that her greatest oath is but to Saint Loy, the saint of Saint Eloy, the saint of metal workers and goldsmiths. So in the first instance itself, you get this worldly touch to the nun. When you're spiritually invested, if you're a nun, you're supposed to be invested with other worldly things like God, like spirituality, But she is very worldly, very materialistic, and this will again keep coming as we listen. We actually decipher who she is as we move forward in the text. You will see that she is a very worldly person, and this is the satire, this is the sarcasm, this is the irony that he's using. That her greatest oath was by Saint Loy. Her name was Madame Eglantine. She sang this divine service very well. It was intoned, or she would recite with rise and fall of pitch of the voice. It was intoned in her nose in an excellent manner. So outwardly, when she's singing the service, when she's talking, it's all about religion outwardly. But if you dive deep into her character traits, you'll see that it's not the outward appearance, is not the truth. There is this balance between spirituality and material world. You'll find it in her. It's not a balance, there's a contrast between the outside and the inside. So, she spoke French fairly and elegantly, which is the last thing you would expect her to know. Remember, I told you during Chaucer's time, English was spoken by the commoners, and the official language was French and Latin. The higher classes spoke French and Latin. So, like the higher classes of people, she knew French. She spoke French fairly and elegantly according to the school of Stratford at Bow. So it's like she picked up French like that. She picked up the dialect of French, which was from the Stratford at Bow, right? According to the school of Stratford at Bow, there are two types of French. So one is according to the school of Stratford at Bow. She picked that up. She spoke French fairly, and for French of Paris was to her unknown. So the Paris spoken in French, that dialect was unknown to her. This one from the Stratford at Bow, she knew this properly, and she used to speak fairly. She was well acquainted with the table manners. She never let a morsel of food fall from her lips. So when she's indulging in table etiquettes, she knew that very well. She knew how to cut with the knife, how to pick up with the fork and eat. She knew all of these table manners, nitty-gritties of table etiquette. She knew everything. So she was well acquainted with table manners. She never let a morsel of food fall from her lips, nor did she dip her fingers too deep into her sauce that it touches her fingers. She dipped it just as much as it was needed. So well could she carry a morsel and well keep. Took care that no drop fell upon her breast. Breast over here would mean her chest. When she's eating, she made sure that the crumbles don't fall on her body. So in table manners, she behaved like a lady of fashion, and she wiped her upper lip. She used to wipe her upper lip so clean that when she drank from a glass, right, a liquid from a glass, no trace could be seen. So sometimes you see when you drink tea and you have lipstick on or gloss on, it sticks to the cup, right? But for her, she wiped it so perfectly that not even one stain was seen on the glass. So over here, what I'm trying to tell you is, her outwardly appearance is of a nun. She's a prioress, and she was the head of a group of nuns. So she is somebody who the rest of the nuns were supposed to look up to. She was supposed to guide them. They were the ones who were under her, so to say. But what kind of example is she setting? She has table manners. She's fashionable. She knows how to speak the higher class society's French and Latin. I mean French. She was fluent. Not fluent. She could speak fairly French. She picked it up from according to the school of Stratford at Bow. And though she could recite the service very well, it was intoned in her to sing the service and all that. But everything else is of importance to her. Table manners is of importance to her. The way she was shy. You don't expect a nun to be shy or show any kind of emotion that way. Like you're shy and you're coy, you don't want to talk and all of those kind of stuff. You expect them to have some kind of a dignity, some kind of an aura about them. I don't want to sound stereotypical, but that's what you expect, that worldly things should not matter. It is the realm of spirituality that should attract a nun. But for her, it's these worldly things, worldly things of what language is she speaking, how is she speaking, how is she presenting herself, whether she is actually observing table manners or not, how does she carry herself in that surrounding. So all of these things is what matters to her. Now we're going to move on further. So she picked her food in a well-bred manner. So, she's very worldly. Like I said, she cares about all of these other things. So, and certainly she was of great humor. She was very cheerful. So she was witty and she was cheerful. She was laughing and everything. So that's fine. She was amiable, having or showing pleasant, good-natured personal qualities in her disposition or characteristic outlook. So here's where the satire and irony come in. Okay. She was amiable. She showed pleasant, good-natured personal qualities. We are going to look at the qualities that she has. Chaucer is going to describe them. In her disposition or characteristic outlook, the way she viewed life, the way she carried herself, things that matter to her, her personality, Chaucer is going to describe now using a lot of satire, a lot of irony. He is going to describe her personality now. She took pains to observe the manners of the royal court and behave in a manner to be held in reverence or respect. So she is a nun. She's, anger, respect, all of these things shouldn't matter. You're dedicating yourself to spirituality. You're dedicating yourself to God. That's what should matter to you. What other people think of you, what others' opinions are should not matter. But she took to the fashions of the royal court and she wanted people to hold her in respect. She wanted to be held in reverence. Okay, so but to speak of her inner self, this is like how she wanted to be treated. But her inner self, she was charitable and pious. That's what you expect a nun to be. You expect a nun to be charitable. You expect a nun to be deeply religious and visibly follow all the moral, ethical codes of the religion. So you basically you're supposed to be ethical, you're supposed to be moralistic, you're supposed to be religious and pious, you know. But what did she do? She used to weep whenever she saw a mouse caught in a trap, whether it was dead or bleeding. She had some small hounds or dogs that she fed with roasted flesh or meat or milk and fine quality bread, wastel bread, okay, over here. So, you know, she was charitable, she was religious, she was very ethical and moral. But where did she direct that morality? If a mouse would be caught in a trap, she would cry. If it would be dead, or even if it would be bleeding, she would cry. She had dogs with her, hounds, okay, dogs with her, small hounds, and she used to give them good food, roasted flesh, expensive, or milk, and wastel bread. Wastel bread was the bread that was which the upper classes had. Most of the population in England could not afford wastel bread, because wastel bread was very, very expensive. So it is the higher classes that could only have wastel bread, and she used to have it, you know. So she gave the dogs, you know, wastel bread. So you can see like where she's very worldly and materialistic that way. So she cried bitterly if any one of them were dead, or if men hit one of them sharply with a stick. She was all feeling and tender heartedness. So satire, irony, you know, that she was all tender hearted, and she was so caring. She was tender hearted and caring, and she had all of these morals, but directed towards whom? Human beings? No. The only human being she actually probably cared about is herself, because she took care of how she appeared, she took care of how she wanted people to treat her. But in reality, she cared about all of these other worldly things, like her pets, like she cared about the kind of food that she's giving them. She cared about how the table manners she observed. So it is not the inner self. She's very preoccupied with worldly things. So, you know, her wimple was, she was all feeling and tender heartedness. Her wimple was very neatly pinched or pleated. Now, wimple, okay, have you seen, okay, this is a traditional picture of a nun I have included here. So you see the whatever she's wearing on her head, that's called a wimple. So this is the headgear we're used to. But during Chaucer's time, this is the wimple that was prevalent, okay. So you see the pleats in the hair, that's the wimple. Now, you have to understand there's not just one kind of wimple. Wimple can be of many kinds. In the medieval times during Chaucer's period, these are the wimples. Just look down. There's so many ways that a nun could dress herself. So this is a wimple. So these are wimples, the headgear. So it was pleated. So she cared about her appearance. She cared that it appears prim, proper and pleated. So she had a well-shaped nose and eyes as grey as glass. Her mouth was small and it was also soft and red. So this is it. Now we're going to move on to the last part of her description. So undoubtedly she had a fair forehead, which was almost a span or about 9 inches. Her forehead, that's what he's describing it as in breadth, for she was not undersized. Full neat was her cloak, as I was aware. She carried a small coral rosary on her arm, which had large dividing beads of green, and on it hung a brooch of brightest gold, on which was written a crowned A and the words "Love conquers all." She had with her another nun who was her chaplain and 3 other priestess also. So you'll understand the love conquers all in the analysis part, but I'll still give you an idea. She had a rosary and then she had a brooch, right? So in the brooch she had love conquers all written on it in gold. So the irony and satire over here is love conquers all. Your love should be directed towards God. It's love for God as a nun. But looking at her character, there's this suggestion that probably it's the love for the material world. It's not particularly the love for God that she's concerning herself with. So this is the irony. It's very abstract the way he describes it, but this is probably what is hinted at. So let's move on to the analysis. So Chaucer's Prioress, Madame Eglantine, is another example of the corrupt church leadership, like I've mentioned. The narrator spends much time in describing her table manners and ability to copy courtly etiquette, but he provides no description of her clerical work. So, you know, she's the prioress, head of the nun, but her whole description is worldly, right? Have you seen, have you noticed? There's no mention of Christianity, no mention of God. It's all about the table manners, about a pleated wimple. It's about her neat clothes. It's about the way she doesn't let morsel fall from her food. The way that her upper lip is wiped clean so perfectly. So there's no description whatsoever of anything which is nunly, which is supposed to be like a nun. Everything is wordly over here. Chaucer has employed plenty of irony while describing her careful play between religious and the worldly. Pointedly, when the narrator describes her as so charitable, like I said, he does not give examples. He goes on to give examples that only involve animals. So her charity is not dedicated towards people. It is dedicated towards animals. So as a nun, you're supposed to serve people, right? But again, pets, and keeping these pets with her and feeding them good food is all she seems to care about. So her golden brooch is inscribed with Amor vincit omnia, or love conquers all, a quote from the Roman poet Virgil. It's supposed to be love of God, but her lifestyle suggests otherwise. The narrator's description of the prioress makes no mention of Christianity. So it's all about worldly material things that we talk about when we talk about the nun or the prioress in the Canterbury Tales. So why, when you write your answers for the Canterbury Tales, if you're talking about character analysis, so suppose you write over here that the narrator's description of the prioress makes no maybe Chaucer has employed plenty of irony while describing her. The narrator's description of the prioress makes no mention of Christianity. Then you write, for example, she is more concerned about worldly things, about all the food and the dogs, all of that you mentioned. Then you say that she's supposed to be dedicating herself for the love of God, which is probably the brooch, which is signified by the brooch, but her characteristic traits, the way she actually presents herself, suggests otherwise. Then you give more examples from the poem. That's how you write your answer, and that's how you get more marks, secure more marks, because you claim anything, you have to substantiate your answers with lines from the text, with examples from the text, and then you'll get your marks. So this is why I'm doing an analysis, and also I'm reading out the character traits of the characters. So we're done with the nun, and now we're going to move on to the monk who appears in the Canterbury Tales. So now we're going to look at the monk. So the monk was there, and he was a dominating kind of man, an outrider whose duty it was to supervise the monastery's estates. So this monk was supposed to take care of the monastery's estates. So that is the meaning of an outrider, and loved hunting. He was manly, and he was capable of being head of an abbey. So he was manly, he had the personality, he had the physique to be able to be the head of an abbey. So he had a number of valuable horses in his stable, and when he rode, men might his bridle hear. So he had the horse, and you ride the horse. So if you have seen cows, right? Cows have that bell sometimes on their neck. So it gives us an idea of where the cow is, right? You get to know, the herdsmen, they know where the cow is, the location of the cow, because of that bell. Similarly, a horse, when you ride a horse, it has a bridle, and in that bridle you sometimes have bells, okay? And in that bridle, so when he rides the horse, you can hear the bridle when he's riding the horse, and it is jingling and whistling as clear and loud as the ringing of chapel bells. So it was loud and clear, and you would know that, okay, this monk is riding past by the sound of his bridle. So there, at the place where this lordly monk was head of the cell, the rule of Saint Maurice and Saint Benedict was followed. So the lord, where he was the keeper of the cell, okay, the rule of Saint Maurice or Saint Benedict was supposed to be followed. But what does this monk do? He disregarded them. He did not want to follow those rules because these rules were, in his opinion, outdated and somewhat strict. This monk let all things go. So he was sort of conformer to rules. He did not want to follow rules. And you see, Chaucer is using the same kind of satire, same kind of irony that he used to describe the prioress to describe the monk. Here too, it is irony, it is a satire. This character of the monk is not who a monk should be, or not how a monk should behave. So he disregards the rule of Saint Maurice and Saint Benedict. He did not want to follow those rules because according to him, those were outdated ones. Those were old rules, so he does not want to follow them, and held after the new order of things. He wants to follow the new order of things, modern things, okay, according to him. And he did not give any care to that text that said that hunters be not holy men. He's supposed to be a holy man, right? But he engaged in hunting. He has a horse, he has a bridle, he rides out. People can hear his horse, they know that it's him, and likely he goes out hunting, and he says, I don't follow the rules that say that hunters are not holy men. Why? Hunters can be holy men. Now, if you think from the moralistic aspect of it, yeah, why not? Hunters can be holy men, but this is a monk, right? He is supposed to be entirely dedicated to, he's supposed to be entirely dedicated to spirituality, to be able to take care of the estate that he is given, but he goes out hunting. And hunting, if you know, usually royal households used to do that. It was more like a game. You know, hunting was like a sport, you know. It's not like hunting, you're killing animals, it's like a sport. So he used to engage in hunting, and he did not give any care to that text that said that hunters be not holy men, or that a monk who did not abide by the regulations is like a fish out of water. He did not agree with that. He said, I can be a hunter, I can follow new rules, I can make my own path, okay, and I'm still a holy man. And this is to say that such a monk is without a cloister, but such a text he held to be worthless, okay. We're going to just move on further to the next part, then you'll understand this part better. So he does not agree with the fact that a monk who hunts and engages in all of these things is like a fish out of water. But such a text he held to be worthless. What kind of text did he hold to be worthless? What is the text that he did not abide by? The text that said, he did not, all these texts that say, right, that hunters are not good men, hunters are not holy men, a holy man who's not with his cloister is like a fish out of water and all, he considered all those texts to be worthless, and said that his opinion, and as I said, his opinion was good. So after giving all these contrasts, Chaucer is saying, as I said, his opinion was good. Satire, irony. And then he's saying, why should he study and make himself crazy upon a book? So see, okay, when we don't study, sometimes our mothers and fathers know, I saw this video where it's very relatable. You know, when somebody does something good, so parents will say, that person did so well, so you should learn from that person and be a good person. I'm just giving a very stereotypical example, okay? Just an example. I saw this online, so I'm just reminded of it. So parents would say, oh, this person did so well, you should also do well. But when that person does something wrong, then the parents will say, if that person is doing wrong, then if that person is doing something, you will also have to do it, or what? If that person jumps in the well, you'll also go jump in the well, or what? So you understand? So that is what they're using, sarcasm, right, to actually get a point through to you. Similarly, here too, Chaucer is saying, I said his opinion was very good. And what's the sarcasm that he's using here? What is he saying? He's saying, why should a holy man, make himself crazy upon a book in a cloister? Why should a monk stay with his people? Like, why should a monk stay with other monks? And why should a monk study? He's using sarcasm. He's giving sarcastic remarks because this is what a monk is supposed to do. And he's saying, oh, why should he toss and toil in labor, as St. Augustine bid or teaches? As St. Augustine had guided that you have to toss and toil, your labor, that's how you attain enlightenment, so to say. I'm just giving an example. You're going to attain an enlightenment if you follow this. So why should a monk do that? Why? Such a worthy monk should not be doing that. How shall the world be served? Let St. Augustine keep his hard work to himself. So he's completely using sarcasm, satire, irony over here, and he's saying, therefore he was a true huntsman. This monk, the monk we're talking about, he's not a true religious follower. He's not a true dedicated spiritual person. He's not a person he's not a true, the person who's part of a cloister, who's actually taking care of all of these other estates and everything. No, he is the perfect huntsman. So, the contrast is right there. And then he kept greyhounds, which was as swift as birds in flight. So you just imagine a monk, and you imagine that he is a hunter. He has greyhounds that are fast. Okay, they're like dogs. They actually they run fast and everything. And he took pleasure in tracking and hunting the hare. So the idea of a monk and the description of the monk as we see in the Canterbury Tales do not add up, right? It's a contrast. So Chaucer's monk, the prioress, monk, prioress, and even the friar, all of these who are sort of surrounded with the church, they all are described with a sarcastic undertone. And it was the reality of the time that Chaucer was living. There was a lot of corruption within the church, and that's why these people who are coming out of the church to us, the characters that he has that inspired him to form these people of the church, they all have a touch of irony and satire when they're being described. And it is not Chaucer's doing it deliberately, because he wanted his readers at that time to be aware, because these are representations of the realities of life. And these are the people of wait, I'll give you the so the knight, the squire, and the yeoman, they are part of the nobility, so they have those traits. Then you have the church, you have the nun, the prioress, you have the monk, the friar. They will have the qualities of those times. So you have to understand that Chaucer is doing everything deliberately. So here you have so you have greyhounds which were as swift as birds in flight. He took pleasure in tracking and hunting the hare, and to enjoy the pleasure he spared no cost. So, you know, whatever he's accumulating today, also religious institutions, they take donations, they have a source of income, which are the people themselves. And the monk, and you'll see later the friar, spared no cost in actually doing what they liked, you know, at the cost of everything else. So, you know, they spared no cost. I saw his sleeve trimmed at the hand. His sleeve was trimmed at the hand with grey fur. So anything that has to do with fur and fashion has to be costly. So he had fur in the sleeves also. So there was grey fur, finest of the land, and for to fasten his hood under his chin. His hood, he had to fasten it, to lock it under his chin. He had made of gold a curious pin. So there was a pin made of gold, and he used to fasten it, and a love knot of greater, and there was. So there was a love knot made over here, a love knot, and his head was bald and shone as clear as glass. His face shone as if it had been anointed. So his face was clear as glass. It shone so much as if it was anointed, that is oiled, no? On the face it was shining so much. So he was fat and of good shape, a monk. You know, you expect a monk to be lean and thin because, you know, the lifestyle is such. But this monk, he was fat and of good shape or good circumstance. So he was not the sacrificing kind of a monk. So his eyes were sharp, which rolled in his head, which sparkled like the fire under a cauldron. You know what is a cauldron? A witch's cauldron, where if you have seen in movies, there's a fire, there's a big pot-like cauldron there, and the witches used to brew their potions in it. That's a cauldron. So a cauldron, it sparkled like the fire under a cauldron. His boots were supple. His horse was of great shape. Now the knight, his horse was good. Remember, we did the knight, the contrast. The knight's horse was good. It was in good shape. But here, the horse was in great shape. So he, being a monk, is taking care of the horse, which helps him on this hunting expeditions. So certainly he was a fair priest. He was not pale like a tormented ghost. A monk, like I'm saying again, he was in good shape. He was good looking. He was a fair priest, and he was not white and pale, and there was no sign of turmoil. There's no sign of labor and sacrifice in his countenance, in his appearance. So he was not pale like a tormented ghost. All meat, fat swan was his favorite roast. So he had expensive taste. And the saddle horse which he rode was brown as a berry. So this is the monk. This is Chaucer's monk. Now we're going to move on to the analysis. So Chaucer depicts the monk with the same irony he uses to describe the prioress. Now I've already explained this. The same satire and irony is used. He's using sarcasm also to actually describe to us the character of the monk. So straightforward descriptions but critical overtones. So there's straightforward descriptions. He's directly telling us that the monk is like this. But then there are critical overtones. What are critical overtones? When he's saying, oh yeah, he did not go, he was a non-conformist to rules of the church. He wanted to be of the new order of things. He followed the new order of things. He did not want to follow any kind of guidance of any kind of saint. He just wanted to do what he wanted to do in the new way. And then he says, yeah, why should the monk be studying? Why should he be taking care of the cloister? Why should a monk be engaging in laborious tasks and all? when he's saying this straightforwardly, he's also criticizing the monk, because these are the things that you expect a monk to do. The monk should be doing all of these things, and he's not. So when he is describing the monk this way, directly, straightforwardly, he's also using critical overtones or undertones in his description, so that he exposes the follies of follies of the monk, or people from the church, the corruption that had seeped into the church during the time. He exposes that to the readers very realistically. So worldliness and fine living of the monk is another hint at that, because a monk is supposed to be lean and thin. That's our stereotypical idea of a monk. But this monk, he is fat. His favorite food is the fat swan, no, the roast of the fat swan. That's what he likes to eat. He's of good circumstance, he's of good shape, he's a good looking monk and all that. So it's worldliness and fine living of the monk, again, that highlights to us the corruption and the materialistic things that had actually seeped into the church, seeped into this whole realm of spirituality. So he should be an ascetic and humble man, but instead he enjoys leaving the monastery, does not want to stay in his cloister. He wants to leave the monastery, he wants to go hunt and eat. So these are the things he engages in. So the monk is honest with himself, okay? He does not pretend to be anything, like, you know, you be a monk and then you hide yourself and behind the back. Whatever he's doing up front. So, you know, he's honest with himself. He's very modern, since he ignores the rules of the monastery, and wears his robe with grey fur lining the sleeves. Again, I said it's expensive. So he also seems like he's more of a regular person than a monk. So, you know, he is actually showing us, he is telling us through the prioress and the friar that the corruption had seeped into the church. But when he's talking about the monk, he's also telling us that corruption had seeped into the realm of spirituality, you know, because you see all of these people who are connected to anything spiritual, they have all of their materialistic aspirations and wants going side by side, simultaneously, parallelly with their religious duties. So the monk over here, no, he seems to be more of a regular person like you and I, rather than a monk. So this is Chaucer's monk. Now we're going to move on to the last character which we are going to deal with for this video. In this video, this is the last character that I will deal with, and then I'm going to continue from part 2 again. So we are going to look at the last character for today's video, and that is the friar. So a friar there was who was wanton and merry. So again, like I said, anything that has to do with spirituality, the church and this realm, right, where corruption had seeped in, this is how he's going to describe it in satire and irony. So the friar there was who was wanton and merry. He was a limiter. A limiter is a person to whom a particular area has been assigned for begging. So, and a very solemn man. So, a limiter would be like this particular friar would be allowed to say in one locality he could beg. Outside that he cannot. Outside that some other friar was allowed to beg. So, in his locality only he could beg. Okay. So, in all of the 4 orders of friars in England, there was no one that was capable of indulging in so much gossip and flattery or flattering language. So this friar, again, see the worldly strands. He was into gossip, he was into flattery, he was using flattering language to appease people. So he had performed many marriages of young women at his own cost. So again, you know, this gives a big jolt to the character of the friar. You know, as opposed to what he should be, what is he? He indulges in gossip. He indulges nothing religious. Again, he indulges in gossip. He's into flattery. And, you know, flattery, when they say that he had performed many marriages of young women at his own cost, young women are, imagine 16, 17-year-old women. Sometimes, you know, they don't think before they act. So this friar, who is supposed to be like a person you can look up to, and a person who is supposed to be not worldly, he has to make his living by begging, right? So these women would, maybe he would approach these women, and there is a hint over here that he would try to be very out of line with them. Maybe he would flirt with them, and they would get into some kind of relationships and whatever. And later, when, you know, it goes, you know, there was a time in, this is something you have to understand. There was a time, say if I take the Victorian era, if a lady is walking alone, no, she has to have a chaperone with her. Like she has to have somebody along with her, okay? And then when you have to talk to a man, that chaperone is supposed to stand with you. I'm just giving an example. So this lady, she's standing with you and you're talking to the man. Okay, there were a lot of restrictions for women in the society, so I'm just trying to explain this point. So you're with the lady and you're talking with this man. Imagine, okay, this is what happens. Suppose you're unchaperoned. If there's nobody with you who is like, you're an unmarried girl and there's no chaperone, you're walking on the road and you meet a guy and you want to talk to the person, and the guy is talking to you in a secluded area, just talking to normal friends. If somebody discovers you, right, if somebody like finds you talking to a man without a chaperone, you will have to get married. That is like, you cannot talk to anybody unchaperoned. I'm just giving an example, okay? Like, you cannot talk. That's how strict the society was. Now, during Chaucer's time, this priest is flirting with them. He might get into relationships and cross lines and borders, if you know what I mean. He might cross lines and borders with these people, with these young women who did not know better. So they will not get husbands now, right? Because, they're in a fix, and they cannot marry the friar also because, he's from a religious background. So at his own cost, he would make sure that these young women whom he probably used or probably flirted with, or because of him, these young women are now in a fix, he would make sure that they would get married. They would find partners. So this is the underlying critique of Chaucer. I'm just trying to explain it to you as easily as possible. So he had performed many marriages of young girls at his own cost. Like, okay, now he's in a fix, what to do? Like, okay, this girl, I need to get her married. So he would like pay for it, or he would make sure that this girl is married off happily with another guy, that kind of a thing. You have to understand these are critical parts and of history, okay, I can say. So this is what it is. So he was a noble pillar of his order. Again, satire. He was a noble pillar of his order. How noble is he? His acts and the way he carries himself is not noble at all. So he was a noble pillar of his order. He was loved and was familiar with wealthy farmers of over all his country, with wealthy farmers over all his country. So he knew the girls, he knew the farmers, and he also knew the worthy women of the town. So you see, he is a wanton fellow, he is a greedy fellow, his character is questionable. So, for he had the power to listen to confession. So now, he knew all the women of his town because he knew the power of confession. And like he himself said, and even more than a parish priest. More than a parish priest also, he has the power of confession. He said it, like the friar is saying that he has more power than the parish priest to listen to confessions, because he had the papal license to do so. So he was given a license. Remember I said this, the friar was a limiter. That is, he had his own area where he would be able to beg, and in that area he had the license to also listen to confessions. So he used to listen to confessions, and he sweetly heard confessions, and pleasant was the absolution he granted. So he used to listen to confessions, and then you're supposed to grant pardon, right? You're supposed to forgiveness, ask for forgiveness, and then you're pardoned. So how did he grant absolution? He was very nice in giving absolution. That's what Chaucer says, ironically, sarcastically, because how did he grant absolution? He easily gave penance when he knew that he would get a good remuneration. That is, if he knew that this person is going to pay me well, he would give pardon easily. So you understand the corruption that is happening. It is, in a long shot, it is not forgiveness, okay? It is not true forgiveness. This person is scared, and I'll tell you, he's making profit of their fear, right? You can, this is like a business. Like, you're scared. The person who's sinning is scared, right? In the medieval times, when I did my mystery, miracle and morality plays also, before that, I told you that this concept of heaven and hell, of being able to ascend to heaven and descend to hell, the fact that if you sin, you're going to go to hell, it was ingrained in the minds of people. So now the friar is monopolizing that, is using it as a business strategy. You understand that this person has sinned, so this person must be really scared, right, that I'm going to go to hell. That's what the person is thinking. So the person is coming to him that please grant me absolution, please forgive me, I have sinned, right? So he is like, okay, this person is scared, he wants absolution, so if he pays me this much, I will grant him absolution. So it's like a business strategy for him. He's making use of the fear that people have. You see, so he's saying he easily gave penance when he knew that he would get a good remuneration. If he knew that this person is going to pay me well, he'll just say, okay, yeah, you're forgiven, easily forgiven. But if he's not getting good payment, no, so he'll make sure that he can extract as much out, make him feel more fear that if you don't give me this much amount, you're not going to be forgiven, you'll go to hell. You see, it's like a business strategy. So for he believed that to give money to poor member of the order is equal to forgiveness. So he's saying that he believed that to give money to a poor member of the order is equivalent to forgiveness. If you give money, you're going to get, it's equivalent to forgiveness. So you see the corruption that is taking place. Now let's move on further. So now we're going to move on to, his characteristics. So he says that if you give more money, it is a sign that you will be forgiven. Okay. So if a man gives enough charity, the friar would boldly assert that the sinner was repentant. So the more money you give, it is equivalent to you being repentant. The more you give, that means the more you're sorry. Okay. Then he's saying, for there are many men who are hard-hearted, like, they have a strong heart, so they cannot cry. So because they cannot weep, even though they suffered badly, so you better give money. That's the easiest way to get your absolution. So therefore, instead of weeping and offering prayers, men should give money to poor friars. So his tippet or his hood or what he's wearing inside, he had many knives and pins to give to fair or beautiful women. So like I said, I told you, right, that his character is questionable. So he probably used to target beautiful women, probably engage in flattery and then give them these gifts like knives and pins. He would give them gifts, and then when things would go out of hand, he would marry them off somewhere else. So that is the kind of character this person is. So and certainly he had a merry voice. Well could he sing and play on a fiddle. I've given a picture of a fiddle there. So again, he had these kind of qualities also. He had a good voice. He could sing and play on a fiddle. In singing, he always took the prize. So he took part in competitions as well. And his neck was white as lily. Yet he was strong as a champion. He knew the taverns well in every town. Tavern is like... you can take it as the modern concept of a bar today. So you have a tavern is a place where drinking, buying and selling of wine would take place, of drinks would take place. So it's like a bar basically. So people would go there and buying and selling of drinks would take place. So he knew the taverns well in every town. What you should be knowing is the church, right? You should be knowing the church of every town, but no, he knows the taverns well of every town, and every innkeeper and barmaid. He knew the innkeeper and barmaid. So he kept connections with these people better than the lepers or beggars, for unto such worthy man as he. So he knew these people, the tavern keepers and barmaids and innkeepers, better than the lepers and beggars who he was supposed to help. As a friar, he would beg and look after that place, right? So he is supposed to be at least looking like helping these people who are in need, but he did not. All he cared about, or his connections were not with the people he was supposed to be connected with. His connections are with these taverns and innkeeper and very worldly people, you see. So for unto such a worthy man as he, we're going to move on further from here. So for unto such a worthy man as he, again, sarcasm, irony, such a worthy man like for such a worthy man like the friar, it was not fitting for a person like him to have with such people any kind of acquaintance. It was not fitting for a person of his high position to know beggars and lepers. Okay, for him, he should be knowing people of power, people of material, right? So it is not worthy and brings no profit dealing with such people, but it's better to deal with the rich and sellers of food, for after all, profit arises there. There's a lot of profit there, so it's better to acquaint with those kind of people. So courteous was he and humble in service. There was no man as virtuous as him anywhere. He was the best beggar of his order. So, there's no man like him anywhere. He was the best beggar of his order. Why best beggar of his order? How best beggar of his order? It does not mean that he was the best beggar by his virtues, but it is by his greed. Because, see, he gave a certain fee for his grant. There are begging rights, okay? So, in his area, he would get grants, right? He gave a fee, I'll pay you this much and you give me the right to beg in this area. If I'll give you part of, he's begging, he's getting money, he'll give part of that money as a fee, okay, and then he'll get a grant that, okay, you beg in this area from the church, he'll beg in this area, he'll get that grant for though so no one else from his order, in his order there are other friars also, so no one else, if he has that grant, no one else from his order can beg in that area, only he will be allowed to beg in that area. So this is what he's saying. So how is he the best beggar of his order? How? Because even though a widow had not a shoe, that is, she was extremely poor, so pleasantly would he recite the opening verses of the Gospel of St. John, so pleasantly he would recite, right, to her, that he would manage to extract from her some little money. Even from a poor widow, he would not leave her. You know, you what are you supposed to do as a friar? You recite the Gospel of St. John and you leave. You do not extract money from a poor person, right? But even if that poor person, in this case a widow, did not have a shoe, he would manage to extract money from her as well. So that means he had power of persuasion, he had power of influence. So that is again the friar. So the proceeds of his begging were much larger than the rent he paid to his convent. So the money that he begs, a part of it goes to the convent, right? He has to give the money there. The one that he keeps for himself is far larger. It's more profitable to him. It's far larger than what he pays. So it's profit for him. He is rich. So on days fixed for the settlement of disputes by arbitration out of a court, he was of much help. So in disputes also, he would be of help. He would take part in these disputes and solve the problems. Okay, let's move on to the last part. For he was not the poor brother who remained in his cloister. He is not somebody who's going to remain with his brethren, with his brothers back in the cloister. No. With whom out of cloak of his body like a poor scholar. He is not going to be held down by those people. He's not going to wear worn out clothes. He's going to be out there doing his thing, you know. So, but rather he was like a high official of the Pope himself. So of double worsted or woolen yarn was his half cloak. Again, a woolen yarn, it must be expensive. So of double worsted was his half cloak, which was ironed well and put on by him. He took care of appearances. It is quite and you know what, there are more things that he does that makes his appearance more charming. So what does he do? Sometimes he lisped to produce a favorable impression. Lisp is like sometimes you say lisp, your tongue will come between both your teeth. So you know, you imperfectly you talk, and imperfectly usually children do that. Lisp, no, children lisp, and it's cute. You understand, when you lisp, it is cute. So sometimes he lisped to produce a favorable impression. The tongue comes between both the teeth, right? So to make his words sound sweet as he spoke as imperfectly as a child. So when a child lisps, you're like, oh, you're so cute. So he wanted to do that deliberately to seem cute, to seem charming. So you see, his priorities again are all messed up. So his eyes twinkle, he sang and he played on the harp, and his eyes twinkled on his head bright as stars do on frosty nights. This worthy limiter was called Hubert. So this is the name of the friar, Hubert. We get his name here. So what we are trying to establish here is this friar is not what he is supposed to be. The nun also is not what she is supposed to be. The monk does not behave the way he has to behave. So there is this entire world of spirituality through which now corruption is seeping through, and through these characters he successfully actually exposes those weaknesses to us readers. So this is the friar. We are done with the major parts of the Canterbury Tales in the beginning, that is the beginning of the Canterbury Tales. We'll finish the Canterbury Tales in a part 2 and part 3 video. This is taking longer than I had expected, but I thought that it was the need of the hour, because these are valuable explanations and notes which can be of help to all of us. So I'm saying that this is with this we are done for this video for today. We have covered the characters of the Canterbury Tales, about I think 7 to 8 of them so far. So we are going to continue from here in the part 2 video. So please stay tuned for that. If this video has been helpful for you, and I sincerely hope that it has, then please don't forget to like the video, share the video, and subscribe to my channel for similar content. Until we meet again, I hope that you stay healthy and happy. See you in the next one, guys.